Good morning, boys and girls of the internet. Today is Tuesday, September 11th, 2018, log number 253. It is the 17th anniversary of September 11th, 2001. I wasn't going to make a vlog not mentioning 9/11. It's something that's definitely within a lot of people's minds today. It is one of the most recent tragedies in American history that we can all look to and, sympathize with, and we mourn with everybody. I'm not going to talk about the surrounding politics around 9/11 and the kind of stuff that's going on today. All I'll really say for today's vlog is kind of tell my 9/11 story. Basically, everybody has their own unique experience on this day. If you can remember it, if you were of living memory on this day, you know what you did that day. You know where you were. I knew where I was. I was at home sleeping until my brother barged through my door in my bedroom. He was living at home still at the time. And he woke me up saying, "We're under attack!" That is something you don't want to wake up to. That's something I was like, the hell are you talking about? I think my exact words was, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And he said, "Turn on the TV." I turned on the TV. I had a TV in my bedroom. And the first tower had already been hit. There was smoke and flames spewing out of it. And I was all like, what the hell am I looking at? And not about 30 seconds to a minute after I turned on the TV, I was like, second plane hit. Right after I turned on the TV. And I was like, it's just for real? Am I watching a movie? And it was, I was still groggy. I just woke up. And it was just crazy to me. It was utter insanity. Excuse me as I just park here for a bit. And I just was all... The only thing I can do is just absorb what I was watching on TV. And I was like, what's going on? How can this happen? Was it an accident? No one knew, of course. I mean, almost immediately, right when the first tower was hit, people were just saying it was an accident. It was like, oh, that's a freak accident. But when the second plane hit in, we were like, okay, this is no accident. This is something deliberate. Now, that morning I had to go to work. At the time I worked at the mall. I worked at a little anime shop. This was 2001. I was 22 at the time. So I was all like, am I even going to work? Like, what's going on? Like, is things functioning like normal? I called my boss up. I'm like, you see what this crazy shit is happening on the on the TV? He's like, yeah. I said, is the mall even open yet? Are they opening the mall and are things running like normal? He's like, yeah, just go open up the shop. Until we say otherwise or something. So I get up, And as I'm going, we keep hearing more reports of things that are going on, like, a plane hitting the Pentagon and a plane crashing down in the field. And we don't know what's going on. We don't know how many times more planes are going to, hit the ground or whatever else. The whole time to drive to the mall, I had the radio on. I never listened to the radio. I never listened to regular talk radio, and I just was listening to everything going on. I get to the mall, and it's a ghost town. There's like nobody in there. There's a few people that are like opening the stores and stuff. But I was sitting there for like a good hour after I opened up the shop. There was a little booth, and there was like maybe one or two people walking around the mall. Usually there's like early mall walkers and stuff. No, not today. It was a ghost town, and then like a couple like mall security and the mall manager walking around was saying like, we're closing the mall. We don't know what's going on in this country right now. We're just gonna close the mall right now because just to kind of just go home. Just close up your shop and go home. I call my boss. I'm like, they're closing the mall. They're sending everybody home. And he's like, what? Really? I was like, yep. So I'm gonna close up and I'm gonna go home. On the drive home, I was listening to more radio, and there was a station saying like, hey, we don't know what's going on with this tragedy in New York, but we're setting up like a little like Red Cross or like little donation thing on a radio station. Come to this address if you can donate anything, money or blood or something like that. So on the way home, I stopped and I donated some money. They didn't have the blood donation there yet. I just went home and watched the news the whole time. And here's the thing. On that day, I had known that morning my dad had went to go fly to visit my grandmother in Florida. He's flying out of here, out of Albuquerque, and usually from Albuquerque, there's no like direct, routes to Florida. We go to St. Louis. So he took an early flight. I had worked for the airline, so he could pretty much fly anywhere for nothing at the time. So he took a really early flight, and when he was on that plane, before they got to St. Louis, that's when the plane started hitting the towers. And I mean, me back home, I'm all like, I knew my dad was on a plane. I just didn't know what the heck was going on with him. I didn't know where he was. I didn't know what was going on. He told us the story later, what happened. It was like right before they were supposed to land, and the pilot got over the intercom, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, everybody sit in your seats if you're not already sitting, buckle up, and we have to land this plane right now. And my dad, he flew hundreds of times. He said, I've never been more scared in my life and he never thought that the plane could do this. It took this bank. It was like almost like 90-degree bank. And I forget if my dad told me if he was sitting on the right or left. So I don't know if he was like looking straight up, or basically what he was doing was like, he was like there was people above and below him. It was almost like he felt like a 90-degree angle, and just like meow, just to get on the ground because it was almost about to land, but he just like banked it and just got on the ground quick. And he told me about how when he was on the ground, they didn't taxi to the jetways at all. They just kind of like, everybody, these planes were just landing on the tarmac in St. Louis. St. Louis is a giant airport. And all the airplanes were just like, they land and like they taxi them, somewhere out of the way. Because more and more planes started landing. My dad's like, I saw my dad knows almost every airplane company in this country, but he's like, I saw airplane companies I never heard in my life, like international companies that never land, anywhere really in St. Louis or around that area, or even New Mexico for that matter. So he never heard of some of these companies. My dad said, he was on the tarmac for, God, it was like 6-7 hours, because they just were trying to. What do you do with all those people? They're not supposed to be there. There's people coming from all over the world, and they're not supposed to landing in St. Louis, but since it was a major hub, whatever planes were around the area, they diverted everything down to the major airports or whatever airport they could probably land at. I can imagine some like small rinky-dink airports around where they're not supposed to handle like a 747 and the 747 trying to land on that thing or something. I don't know. I'm wondering if that really happened. I'll have to look into that. But, what do you do with all these people? Eventually they eventually got them all out of the planes and stuff. They, one by one just go into whatever gate they could to get the people off the planes. And it was chaos. Finally, by the time my dad was able to get off the plane, he was finally able to call us, because this is 2001. Not everybody had cell phones. Granted, my dad, he didn't have a cell phone until 2009. So it took him a really long time to get a cell phone. Probably later than that. So there's really no way to contact people. And a couple people on the plane had cell phones, and they were trying to tell people if you guys have cell phones, that's, it's wireless, but please don't use your cell phones yet. We need to keep communications open and stuff like that, which is understandable. And I'm sure everybody was trying to call something and overloading cell towers and stuff. Finally, I guess when my dad got off the plane, he was able to get to a payphone and call us and kind of let us know what's going on. He didn't go on to Florida because there was going to be no flights anywhere. They shut down the air for over 24 hours on that day, if you remember. 9/11, there was no airplanes flying anywhere in America, at least. Which, in hindsight, I remember reading a story not too long after that scientists took that opportunity to do some studies of the air, because in no time in almost anybody's living history has there been a time where there wasn't airplanes in our sky. There's constantly airplanes in our sky in any given time, 24/7, for the last 100 years. Maybe not quite that long, but you know what I mean. At least 80 years. So they took the time to study the air and see the atmosphere. And I forget what kind of they were looking into, but they were just kind of looking at it to see what air quality would be like when there's no airplanes up in the sky, exhausting fumes and whatnot. And I guess there were some pretty drastic results or something. But I digress. My dad eventually, he took a rental car home. He shared it with some random guy that was heading west. He was going on to Arizona. But him and my dad just split the cost of the rental car and just drove straight here. I think they stopped somewhere halfway. Or maybe they didn't, I forget. But it took my dad a good day and a half to get home. But I just remember that day. And news reporters just, as hours go on and people saw what was going on, towers just falling, hours after they got hit. You see the people in New York covered in soot and debris from the towers and all that, just looking like ghosts. I remember watching one news reporter. He couldn't keep it together. He broke down on air. I'm breaking down just thinking about it. his voice was cracking, and he had to say, excuse me, folks, I'm just kind of this tragedy, blah blah blah. And it was something. It was a giant blow to this country. It was something that so unexpected that something like that can happen. Again, I'm not going to talk about the politics afterwards, but other than to mention that for a time, people were like super patriotic. Even me. For a short time, I even put like a little American flag on my antenna in my car. That was back when I had a antenna on my car. When I had a car that had an antenna, I put a American flag up there. Just everybody was super patriotic. And I remember like there was a commercial saying like, they thought they would drive us apart, but we're more together now and more patriotic now. They showed like, streets, suburban streets of like now every suburban household had a flag outside their house. Some might say though, it was a little misplaced patriotism. Yeah, we were kind of being patriotic and being together, in support of the victims of this tragedy, and that's a good thing. I'm not taking anything away from that. However, that tragedy was unfortunately used to manipulate the American people's emotions and feelings about who do we go after. Who's responsible? How do we, take the people responsible to justice, hold them accountable. Not too long after that, we found ourselves in Afghanistan. And for some reason, a little while after that, we were in Iraq. Saddam Hussein was a terrible person. He had nothing to do with the attacks on 9/11, but the fear was stoked. There was false rumors put out there that there was weapons of mass destruction, and people were already afraid that more attacks could happen on our soil. And we were in Iraq, fighting in Iraq. That was one of our biggest mistakes of our last 15, 20 years. So, that was my 9/11 day. I still feel for the people who were victimized by that tragedy, even years later, when first responders had a hard time getting, health care, proper health care for the things that they're experiencing. The first responders that survived that tragedy, they took in a lot of, burning fumes and asbestos and all kinds of stuff, and they had health problems for years, and a lot of them died years after that because of they developed problems from just responding to that tragedy. And a lot of health insurances wouldn't cover for certain things. And I remember Jon Stewart from The Daily Show. He was a New Yorker. Daily Show was filmed in New York. He went and he fought for them. He fought for them constantly over years and years and years. And he did get some justice for them and some help for them. So that was good. So 17 years. Next year would be 18. So basically, if you were born on 9/11 or after, by this time next year, you will be officially an adult. Time flies. But never forget. I don't usually get too reminiscent or misty about certain events in American history. And yeah, maybe with current things are going on in this country, I get a little jaded about things like misplaced patriotism. It's like, yeah, love your country, but love your country for the right reasons. Support your troops, but don't support endless wars that send our troops to their deaths for no reason. You know what I mean? People want to say, it's like, oh yes, don't disrespect the troops. But in my mind, the disrespectful thing for our troops is to keep sending them to pointless wars that all it does is, fuel our military-industrial complex, make profits for, weapons manufacturers, and gets our resources and make us an imperialistic country that where we are still like going out and trying to conquer countries. Is that what we're doing now still? Sorry, I didn't want to get this too political. Um, but I guess there's no way of avoiding it really. Um, but as the sun is rising right now, about to blind me, I'm just gonna say, thanks for watching. Maybe we'll talk to you all later. Everybody have a good day. And never forget, I love you.